Welcome back, Egyptology lovers. Today we are doing plate 32 from the Book of the Dead. This is considered chapter 42, which appears here on the left-hand side of this plate, right over here. It has been reduced here to a section containing the deification of the members, so of the body parts. So each body part has a deity. Each of the 21 columns of text identifies part of Ani's body with the god mentioned in the third and fourth register. So you could see right over here, third and the fourth register. Now, the number 21 for the body parts was chosen here most likely for the same reason as the number 42 in the previous chapter for the negative confessions. It is the multiple of the magical number 7. So 7 is a magical number. The intent of this text has already been encountered in several other places in the Book of the Dead. By identifying himself with a deity or deities, the deceased would thus automatically enlist the aid of the gods, invoked, achieving a place within the company of the gods. In this chapter, Ani tries to attain this objective by associating each part of his body with a god. The text follows the pattern of medical papyri, beginning with Ani's hair and ending with his toes, so from top to bottom. We can see that the text is retrograde, so it's moving from left to right. So it's going left to right, retrograde. That's what it means. Since Nun, with whom Ani's hair is identified, appears in the leftmost column, and the 𝑓 which is with which his toes are identified, appear at the rightmost column. So Nun is always put first. Since he was the first, he was the self-created in the primordial waters of chaos. So he is always the first amongst the gods. The next vignette is well-known illustration that normally belongs to chapter 126, right over here. However, the accompanying text is one of the standard terminal rubrics of chapter 125, as the modern numbering system implies, which we're doing, chapter 126, would normally appear directly after chapter 125, yet its vignette is preceded by chapter 24. The sequence of texts and vignettes make it clear that either the copyist error has been made, or more likely that a mistake was introduced in the funerary workshop while pasting the sheets together. Once the scribe realized that the prefabricated vignette had been placed out of sequence, he probably decided to continue with the text for chapter 125, even though the replacement did not quite fit the space allowed. Interestingly enough, he continued to write the text in the canonical direction in which the preamble to chapter 125 reads, so 125a and plate 30. The rubric belongs to a genre of text that explains the ritual requirements for reciting the spells. So right over here. So you can see these are two pasted together because the different color, you see the discoloration of the papyri, two different colors that were pasted together. The scene shows 4 cyclophallus baboons sitting at the corners of a rectangular pool. On each side of this pool is a flaming brazier. So you can see 4 baboons, and then you see 4 braziers, basically, that create fire. The pool's red color indicates that it's filled with fiery liquid, reminding one of the lake of fire frequently mentioned in the Book of the Dead. Had the correct chapter been written here, it would probably have begun by addressing the baboons who sit at the bark of Ray, right over here. So the text is not referring to what's up here. The next 4 vignettes depicts types of amulet commonly placed in the mummy bandages of contemporary burials. Moving from left to right, so right over here, left to right, we have the first one. This is the Jed pillar, chapter 155. Then we have the Tiet, which is the Isis knot, chapter 156. Then the heart, which is chapter 29b, right over here. And then finally the last one, which is the headrest, chapter 166. The headrest was used by Egyptians to sleep, so they didn't use pillows. They just used a type of headrest like this one. Amulets of these types, which have many religious, mythical, and iconographical associations, help to protect the body in the periods between death against a variety of different forces. The translations presented here for chapter 155 and 156 include long terminal rubrics not found on the Ani papyrus, which give detailed instructions for the use of the amulets. Since the scribe apparently allotted only 2 columns per amulet for the accompanying text, he also had to truncate chapter 166. This entailed the omission of all the references to the head, which the chapter was intended to protect. So unfortunately, he only had 2 for each one, and he couldn't put it in to describe the protection for the head. So commercialization really in its utmost sense. So that's pretty much the description. What we're going to do is read from right to left here. This is done in from the retrograde. So we're going to read all the body parts. We're going to read from the very top down. And then we're going to go moving westward, and then we're going to end up here and read from over here. I'm sorry, actually, we're going to start from over here, reading back to the canonical versions from right to left, and these will be read retrogrades. So you could see how this shifts from left to right, and then right to left, and then left to right, left to right, left to right for all the 4 columns. So let's do that now, and we'll start right over here on the very top. All right, so now we're starting over here. Now, all of them have the same type of EU. This is a type of introductory to a sentence. So it's not really pronounced, but it does introduce what the sentence is for each particular one, even though these are not really considered sentences, but just the way they're pronounced. So you start off from here, then you have, for example, the hair, and then you have this other red line here, that's the word of, and then you have Ani's name. So you have the Osiris, Ani. Now, some of them is, like this one has the Osiris scribe, Ani, and then some of them have the vindication. So these 2 are exceptions, but from here, everything else is duplicated except these 2, the face and the eyes for some reason. And then at the very bottom, you have, of course, justified or true of voice all the way across the board there. Then you have the red, which is also a preposition like the of, and this is in, or basically in or is, in, let's say, nun, and then you have the associating actual god who has been properly drawn. So Atum, for example, Nun here, for example, has been drawn as a primordial water. He is a generic looking god symbol. So we'll go through each one of them right now. So let's start from the very top here. It says, hair of the Osiris Ani, justified or true of voice, in nun, or is in nun, which is the god, and then you can see his drawing right there. And then over here you have the face of the Osiris scribe Ani, vindicator, true of voice, which is in Re, or Re is within it. So you could see the Re, the falcon with a sun disk. And now continuing up here, the eyes of the Osiris Ani, true of voice, or vindicated and vindicated again, in Hathor. So that's the symbol of Hathor. And you can see the serpent here. These are gods, and then there's a female. Usually the females are serpents, and the men are considered gods in determinatives. And then you see Hathor, her true image, seated down with the Re symbol, the sun disk, and the horns. Continuing up here now. Here you have the ears of the Osiris Ani. So going forward from now, we're just going to say Ani because it's pretty much all the same. And then you see justified, vindicated. So let's do that. So the ears of Ani, justified, of 𝑓𝑗𝑗𝑇. 𝑓𝑗𝑗𝑇 is a wolf-type god of Asiut, so he's very well known and associated with Osiris. And you can see him here on a standard, and Asiut, 𝑓𝑗𝑗𝑇. And then continuing here, the lips of Ani, justified, is in Anubis. We all know who Anubis is. There you go. You can see how he looks like, or Inpu is his name, Egyptian name. And now over here we have the molars, so the back of the teeth, of Ani, justified, is Selket or Serket. So Ser, don't worry about the L, it's an actual R. Serket. Sometimes they write it as an L. And you can see it right over here. And then continuing over here, we have the incisors. So the front teeth, the ones that cut the meat, of Ani, justified, is in Isis. You can see the famous Isis symbol there. Then continuing up again, the arms of Ani are in now 𝑂𝑁𝑒𝑏𝑗𝑇. Now 𝑂𝑁𝑒𝑏𝑗𝑇 is a type of ram god that has 4 heads, and he is a personifications of different type of aspects of himself. You can read about that, but that's his full name, is 𝑂𝑁𝑒𝑏𝑗𝑇. So that's how you pronounce it. All right, now the upper breast, the chest area, upper chest area, is of Ani, is that of Neet. All right, you can see Neet here. She's a serpent goddess. And then the larynx, which is in your, the larynx, which is in your throat. This is of Ani, justified, is in, now here you see the beloved eye. So it's a type of god, I guess. It's a form of a god, so the beloved eye. And then over here, the upper breast again. Once more, I guess it's been duplicated for the upper breast. So you have here of Ani, justified, is in the Lady of Sais, so the Lady of Sais here. She's well known throughout the Delta in the north, about 25th, 26th dynasty. She was very well liked, or even the 21st, 22nd dynasty, actually, yes. So continuing over here, the back of Ani, justified, is in Set, so the god Set. Now, Set here is the evil uncle. You can see he's not actually drawn. You hardly actually see him drawn on papyrus in this Book of the Dead or ever. He's been mentioned in words but never drawn as he is, and his aspect looks like a canine. So I guess it was to make sure that he doesn't come back on the papyrus, so they draw him as a generic looking god so he doesn't reappear. So very superstitious people, the Egyptians. Now the muscles of Ani are in the Lord of 𝓿𝓼𝓆, so the Lord of 𝓿𝓼𝓆. You can see a generic one here too. All right, now the next one is the lower breast or chest area of Ani. Justified is in he who is greatly majestic. So there you go. So it's an expression more than a name, but it could be considered a name as well. And the generic, of course, God over here. Continuing here. Now we have the spine, the back or the spine of Ani. Justified is Sekhmet, the lion goddess. Continuing over here now, the buttocks of Ani are in the eye of Horus. So the eye of Horus, you can see the wedget on the plinth. And continuing here, the phallus, or the penis of Ani, is in Osiris. So Osiris was considered the god of rebirth and rejuvenation. So it makes sense that the phallus, which of course excreted sperm and then impregnated a woman, gave birth to new life. So Osiris was considered new life. So that's an example of why the phallus was associated with him. All right, now the thighs of Ani, justified, are with Nut, the goddess Nut, who created Osiris with Geb, his father. So Nut and Geb gave birth to Osiris and the three other gods, Isis, Nephthys, and Set. And now the feet of Ani are in Ptah. Ptah is a god of Memphis, a very popular god from Memphite area. And then here we have the fingers of Ani are in Orion, so the constellation Orion. And you could see over here that's the constellation, or a star to indicate a constellation. And finally, we have the toes of Ani, which are in the divine uriei, so the divine or the living uriei. And you can see the three uriei snakes over here. So that's the completion to the body to be able to associate with divinity. So each body part can be protected. You could see it starts off from the very top of the head, from the hair, and works all the way down to the toes. So there's a perfect example of deifying the body parts for protection. So now we're going to move over here. We're going to read this section over here, and that is section 125. So let's do that right now. So now over here, it doesn't describe what's happening in the image. It's really just describing a different rubric. It's chapter 125. So if for some reason it didn't have space, like I mentioned before, and they just put in something else because they realized the pasting mistake. And you could see here at the end of it, they just had extra space and didn't know what to do with it, so they just left it blank. All right, over here, let's start now. It says, by the Osiris Ani, vindicated or justified. Now this text is going to move a little strangely here because it's, again, put together pretty quickly. So over here it says, starting from there now, we're going to shift over here to the next column. It says, may I, and then come back and say, be purified and clad in, now you have to pay attention here, going back over here, white, coming back, garments, and then back down here, sandals. So he's basically asking that may he be purified by being dressed in white clothing and sandals. So that's the translation. And may be anointed upon this head with myrrh. And then continuing it says, may he be given, so you see here this word given, an offering of poultry with beer and of meat, and then we continue up here, of green incense, so green incense, of goose, of a bundle of herbs, beer, and then black herbs. Thereby, when you have put this procedure, up here now, in writing upon a pure floor made of pure ochre, which is adorned with earth, which, continue up here, no legs of cattle and of swine herds, so no herds of swine, upon it. So none of the cattle and a herd of swine upon the floor, which has been purified. As for him who puts this in writing, so these are together, writing, the papyrus and this, on his face, or remembers it, he will be flourishing like the children of his children will flourish. Like Re, so the sun god. And continuing now, and he shall not be in need, and he shall be in the confidence, which continues up here, confidence of the king, and in his entourage, so the entourage of the king as well. Continuing. Now this is Iu. It introduces a new sentence, and it says, and he shall be given shen's cake with person cake, jugs of beer, and a portions of meat upon the altar. So usually there'll be an offering table or an offering table, so there's also considered an altar. And then over here, of the great God. And he shall not be turned away from any gateway of the west. So gateway to exit out into the west. Now continuing over here, and he that will be ushered in, continuing back here, with the kings of Upper and Lower Egypt. And he shall be in the suit or the followers of Osiris, for in the presence of 𝑓, which is also the name of Osiris, 𝑓. A matter of 1,000,000 times of true. All right, now we're going to move over here to the amulets. Now we're moving back to retrograde. We were from retrograde to canonical, from right to left, and now we're back to left to right. So we're going to start from here. Chapter of Jed Pillar of gold, word spoken by the Osiris Ani vindicated. So this is about a Jed Pillar. You rise in your great place of heart. Now over here, may you, coming back down here, shine, and this continues up here, shine in your great place of heart. May you put or give sight in your presence when coming. May you bring the Jed Pillar of gold, so that you, this is supposed to be a line there, red line, so that you may rejoice within it. So that's the Jed Pillar. We're going to move over now to the Tiet, or the Isis knot on top there. All right, now here, chapter of the amulet, or not amulet, of red jasper, word spoken by the Osiris Ani vindicated, the blood of Isis, the magic of Isis, continuing up here, the powers of Isis. They will be driven back and protected by this or that great one, and be protected by whoever would do him this harm. All right, now continuing to the heart amulet. Here it says, chapter of the heart of Seheret stone, word spoken by the Osiris Ani vindicated, or justified. I am, these are together, the Bennu bird, the soul of Re. I guide the gods, now continuing up here, to the duat when they go forth or go out. And the souls upon the earth will do what they love and desire. And the soul of the Osiris Ani will go forth and do what it loves, or he loves and desires. So that's the end of the heart. Now we move over here to the headrest. Chapter of a headrest. May it be placed underneath your head. The Osiris Ani vindicated. May the pigeons, which is over here, may the pigeons awaken you when you are asleep. O Osiris, continuing up here, may they awaken your head to the horizon, or at the horizon. May you raise yourself to be vindicated or justified. Ta, you have fallen his enemies. This is you introduces a new sentence. His enemies, for you are not fallen, O Osiris, which means basically the Osiris Ani is not fallen. So that's the completion of the chapter. So once again, as I've explained for this plate, it's very convoluted, very put together, very rushed, very minimized. A lot of sentences are missing, a lot of ideas are missing, and things are just kind of put together in order to complete this chapter. Because remember, as I said earlier, this section here is not describing what's up here. So this was slapped together pretty quickly because they most likely made an error realizing that they were putting the wrong chapter in there, and then created a new idea or a new type of spell or explanation or blessing or hymn. And then over here, they only had a little bit of space, 2 columns for each amulet. So they had to kind of rush and put in as much as they could in between, making sure that the name of Ani was put in there. So you can see even the Osiris Ani is never complete. It's just Osiris, Osiris, which refers just to Ani, instead of having the, for example, here, the Osiris Ani vindicated. So there you go. Commercialization at its best with the ancient Egyptians. Well, there you go. That's the end of this plate. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoy. I'll have to do over now. We're shifting over to plate 33. Please stay tuned for that. Thank you very much for watching and subscribing. Have a good day.